Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the continuing series of webinars on food security in the Bahamas. I am Michelle Malcolm. I'll be hosting this webinar today. And the topic that we're going to be discussing today is technology in farming. We have, as always, a great lineup of speakers who are going to bring some really great information to you about how you can incorporate technology in all of your farming efforts. Once again, this webinar is being sponsored by Longevity, Bloom & Minerals, and Liquid EFM, and you will hear more about those products a bit later on in the webinar, as we will be playing a few videos from the company that is sponsoring the webinar, so you can learn more about those amazing products that are just fantastic for persons in the agricultural sector. So without further ado, we are going to introduce our first speaker. Dr. Anselino Davis is the principal and CEO of Science and Perspective. You can check out his website, www.scienceandperspective.com. And he has a really innovative way of combining the science of agriculture as well as the perspective that is needed to be applied when you are looking at why your crops are doing well or not doing as well as you would like. And so without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Davis to the webinar.
So for Science and Perspective, what I do is I use formal scientific knowledge and I bring it through the Bahamian perspective and our culture. So when we take into account everything that people are learning and finding out around the world, it's not always appropriate for us. And so that's why I use to connect things for people. So right now I want to start off with first the definitions for those who are just joining or who may not have been listening to your previous shows. First, what is agriculture? Any living thing that you cultivate for production of an item, fruit, vegetables, wine, and not just food, but wool, leather, fiber, biofuels, all that is agriculture. And then what is technology? That's applied science. So you study the world around you and you use what you find to apply to your problems and issues and make the world better or easier to function in. So if you're doing that for things that you're growing for products, that's agricultural technology. Now, when we talk about who's involved in agriculture, there's two groups, the grower and the consumer, and these affect how they're gonna use technology. And that's two groups at minimum. But the growers, they're almost always also consumers, but growers want to get their products to be the highest quality possible in the highest quantity with as little investment as possible. And so that investment could be time, energy, space, or physical resources. And the fewer you have to put in, the faster you see the rewards or the more rewards you see. So you need the best technology to get you to that level. They also need science to tell them which products are able to be grown here and which ones are most marketable if they are going to sell them. So you can be a grower without actually being in the agriculture economy, and you may just be doing it for yourself. Now, consumers, on the other hand, they are often not growers. So you could probably run through 100 people that went to the food store to buy something, but they're not growing anything inside their backyard. But at the same time, they still want the best product quality for the least investment. However, for most consumers, their investment is only time and money. I don't want to search the entire island for an avocado. And when I find it, I don't want to pay $8 for those 2 avocados, right? So they also have thresholds. What are you going to pay for? If I could pick an avocado off the tree outside, I'm not going to buy that no matter where I find it. And then also, if you don't know how it tastes, or if you don't like how it tastes and you don't see the value in it, you're not going to pay for it. So now we also have a bunch of other players. We have the distributors. They determine which suppliers are feasible to get the product from. Because if I could get pineapple here in Nassau, I'm not going to get them from Eleuthera. And then also I want to know who's going to pay for it when I deliver it so that I can get the money for that delivery. The wholesalers are determining which produce they could store and how long and if it's worth it. Restaurants are determining which food they can prepare and what their customers want to eat. The medical professionals, they're in the agriculture economy because they want to know which fruit have the potent health benefits that they could recommend to their patients and which can have negative effects. I recently learned that there's a tree that looks exactly like neem to the novice eye, but it's called China berry. And neem has all these health potential benefits, and then China berry is poisonous. So if you mix them up for a medical professional, that could be a big issue. Now, the government, we hear the government talking about all kinds of things related to backyard farming and agriculture. So that technology for soil quality, for fruit and vegetable production, all of that is really important. But we're not necessarily doing that in country. So now we need to think of how can we improve that? And here in the Bahamas, some basic things that we can do, like the Ministry of Agriculture has the Gladstone Road Agricultural Center, just bringing in plants that you have around the world in the tropical belt and doing the studies on them to say which ones can grow here. That's of the utmost importance, because as soon as you can grow something here, that means you don't have to import it. And it doesn't make sense for a country to bring in 90% of what we're eating or 90% of what we use. After that, once you bring things into the country, and maybe even before you bring things into the country, we need an assessment of the things that we already have here. Everyone talks about how much citrus is in a strawberry or an orange or a tomato. Where's the study on how much citrus is in a cocoa plum? How many different micronutrients are inside a darling plum or a juju or ganap? A lot of these fruits are from other countries as well, but then many of them, they're just hanging out there on the road to Adelaide or in the bush out Coral Harbor. And we can actually study these and assess them properly instead of having the opportunity for people to poo-poo them as, oh, that's just bush medicine, or that ain't a good fruit because it ain't sold in the food stores. So we need the technology to actually assess them. We also need to focus on maintaining our rights to the fruits that we have in country. So we have things like a mastic fruit that grows natively in the Bahamas. It's not marketed internationally, but if a foreign researcher comes and finds out that, oh, this has the cure to cancer inside it, and they go and steal a couple seeds and start growing it on the other side of the planet, mass production, will they return to us a percentage of the benefits that they get from this new cancer prevention drug? And who's thinking of that? And what technologies do we need to assess those benefits, the genetics and the chemical composition of those things? For our distributors, we already have some of this in place, but just mapping out where things are in the Bahamas, knowing which islands we have different fruits on, which islands we have different products on. How can you get them between point A and point B? And things for farmers that are growing, you can have an app that says, I have this fruit or vegetable on my farm and it will be ready to pick in the next few weeks. So now you know who's growing it, where they are, when it's going to be available, and you can also have a more democratic bargaining process. And creating apps like this is very important, and this is an open market right now for someone to do this. Some of the most simple technology that we have is a spreadsheet. Who in the Bahamas right now has a spreadsheet of all the agricultural players in the Bahamas? Nobody. The Ministry of Agriculture doesn't have a comprehensive one. The IECA doesn't have a comprehensive one. That's the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture. They just don't have it together. And that's the most basic thing that we need. We need to know who and where they are. We have lots of technological advances, I think, around the world now. You can improve your irrigation. You can make shade houses or greenhouses to grow different fruits and vegetables year round. We have aquaponic systems that are working in the Bahamas so that you can grow fish and that fish waste can feed your plants. And then you have two products at the same time. We have different people who are using mixed agriculture where you have a shade plant or a tree that's growing, and then below that tree, you're growing other plants or herbs or vegetables. And all of these things are really important, but even just getting back to the basics of connecting and creating community, I think technology-wise, that's where we really need to focus now. And speaking of those networks, one of the greatest advances of this last maybe decade or so is network analysis, and just seeing how people are connected through their consumption purchases, their food use. All of that can be really important to helping us to better understand how we distribute our food and how we create that food. There's so many different types of technology, but the primary things that we need to focus on right now is the connection between our growers and our consumers. So apps and developments to show where the food is and how you can get that food most quickly. If you're a farmer, you need to be able to let your customers know. And if you're a consumer, you need to know where the best food is and the best prices are. And if you're in industry, that's what you need to be focusing on right now.
You mentioned an app idea. I know that there are other organizations in the region that have put together a really cool app where a person can go onto the app, look at what produce is available, place the order, arrange time for pickup, everything. It just makes so much sense. So we're going to be talking more about that in the question and answer segment a bit later on. As I would have pointed out, this webinar is being sponsored by Longevity Bloom and Mineral. You know, in technology, you can do good, but there's also a lot of bad being done in technology, in agriculture. And luckily, Longevity has the answer to much of what we see happening in the industry right now, in the sector right now.
When you see this sign or see this advertisement, what does that make you think of? Bayer, right? Bayer aspirin, doesn't it? Well, Bayer, interesting enough, is another one of those chemical companies that we are familiar with. And I pulled this advertisement off of an inside cover of a magazine that was printed in Canada. Here we see Bayer, Science for a Better Life, and you see rows and acres of wheat in Western Canada. Now, interesting enough, in this information up here, if you have a closer look, see Healthier World, one harvest at a time, the right combination of innovative science. That's the technical term or the talking point for genetically modified grains. See, this wheat they're harvesting there is a genetically modified wheat. It is altered from its original design. I'm going to show you some things here as we move through this presentation about the negative side effects of genetically modified plants. Okay, the seed industry. This is actually courtesy of the Michigan State University. If you look here, all the red dots up here, all the red dots, Monsanto, DuPont, Dow Chemical, Bayer up there, and you've got all these red dots here own the blue dots. There's a connection or relationship. Those are all the blue dots is the seed companies. There are dozens of seed companies out there, and they're all owned by, guess who? They're all owned or partially owned by the chemical companies, the pharmaceutical companies. The chemical companies own the pharmaceutical companies as well as the seed companies. Now you get the big picture,
I'm
don't
signing
you?
in. Okay, so Ryan Adderley got back into farming 10 years ago because he wanted to be able to provide for his family, and he realized that he didn't need vast stretches of land to grow food. His first garden was 2 feet by 2 feet in the back of an apartment, and it has grown tremendously since then. And he now embraces technology in his operation of Adderley Farms. He's had hydroponic and aquaponic setups and he recently upgraded his online presence with a Facebook shop and carrying out business online via WhatsApp. So I'd like to ask Ryan to go ahead and unmute your microphone, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, I have, because of the pandemic, I needed to find a way to try and bring in residual income. And I had already had my farm posted online. So for about 6 or 7 years, I had all of my activities on the farm posted. So a lot of persons got to see my hydroponic system, which was a small, I forget the name of the system, but it was an all in one to where I can grow mostly herbs straight from seed. And the idea behind what I was doing online at that time was just to share my experiences with the public and as a way of record keeping for myself as well, because I wanted to be able to see the mistakes that I made and give persons a remedy, if because a lot of people you see nowadays are getting into farming and they're making mistakes. So I wanted to show persons what my mistakes were as I was making them. And with the issue with the pandemic, a lot of persons were looking for seeds. And throughout my career, I guess I kept a lot of seeds because I know the importance of having different seeds available that are easy to grow and ready to go. So I already had my online accounts through Facebook and Instagram, and I was posting to them. But as soon as the pandemic came around and persons started looking for seeds, I realized that I really needed to up my online presence. And that's when I started a Facebook shop and started posting for WhatsApp. So the shop allowed me to interact directly with customers, and then using my WhatsApp group or just using my WhatsApp account, I would be able to send my location to persons so they can then schedule what they're gonna do when they go out. They know exactly what they're gonna do at their time, and it allowed me to be a little bit more flexible with the customers as well. Using WhatsApp and live locations, we were able to meet up anywhere in New Providence as I was on the road, as I was moving about. So I definitely agree that the online presence really, really helped, and a lot of persons are doing that now as well. And that also helps to create a community, which is something that Dr. Davis he also spoke about. There are a lot of persons online now who I am a lot more familiar with because of our interactions through social media. Um, and a lot of them are now working together. So I haven't really needed to purchase anything because of the groups that I'm in online. We are doing a lot of trading. So that's something that we will definitely need to address is how do we effectively trade resources if we want to step away, let's say, from using currency. It's something that we've started to speak about. Persons have spoken about it in the past in various groups, but it's coming up again because we were in the pandemic. So a lot of people were concerned about that. And it's definitely something that we'll need a lot of persons behind to figure out. Uh, yeah, I didn't really have much other planned about it, so I just really wanted to make that statement about it. So I guess that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, that was a lot shorter than I anticipated.
I
Okay.
mean, I can go on talking about my experiences if persons would like to have an idea of what it was like, because I did make a lot of mistakes in the past, and I did use a lot of online resources to figure stuff out. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube researching different farming methods, and that really drove why I wanted to do a lot more stuff online because I got to see persons who had been doing videos on YouTube for about 5 years, and you got to see their farms grow. And when I started, when I first started with my plot in my apartment, and I was just taking simple one or two pictures of the garden. And after about a 2 to 3 month time frame, I got to witness it growing, and so that really got me to document it more. I'm already in communications and video production, so it was easy for me to create stuff and then start to market what I was doing as a product.
So I'm going to play another clip from our sponsor. Again, we're talking about technology in agriculture. And unfortunately, reality in today's world is that there are some who are using technology in agriculture for all the wrong reasons.
Here was an interesting article, Standard Examiner, Ogden, Utah, December 2012. New threats as weeds, bugs adapt to genetically modified seeds. Very good article. Matter of fact, is a reprint from the Minneapolis Star Tribune. And what I wanted to bring your attention to is in this article, there were some very interesting comments made by the author. 15 years ago, genetically engineered seeds promised to reduce the amount of poisons and use on the land, but today they are forcing farmers to use more and sometimes more toxic chemicals to protect their crops. What they're basically saying here is that the first generation of genetically modified plants are not good enough. They had to modify those and increasingly use a stronger and more stronger chemicals to overcome some of these negative side effects of the genetically engineered seeds. Another interesting part of this article here is to combat the growing wave of resistant weeds and bugs, Monsanto and Dow Chemical are poised to launch a new arsenal of genetically modified seeds that will accelerate the chemical warfare. Interesting, isn't it? So, if you know anything about genetically modified plants, the first generation we call triple stack, which is basically 3 proteins have been modified and 3 genes have modified in that plant. The second generation is 6, and now, if I understand it correctly, there's 9 different proteins. Depends on the different parts of plants, but they continue to genetically modify these plants, try to improve them. Question is, can they do that? Can we actually genetically modify a plant and make it better than its original design intended for animals as well as human use?
So, you know, us humans, we always think we are smarter than the creator, huh? So I promise that there's a method to my madness as it relates to the videos that I'm playing today from our sponsor, because as you will hear by the end of this webinar, this actually presents a great opportunity for farmers in the Bahamas to take advantage of a situation that has now developed where there is a great demand for products that have not been tampered in the wrong way by technology. But we're going to get to that in a minute. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Eddie Russell is the marketing coordinator for Bluefield Farms. Bluefield Farms is an aquaponic farming operation in the Bahamas, which produces salad blends, live herbs, and microgreens. So without any further ado, let's have Eddie go ahead and unmute your microphone, please. And let's hear from you. Welcome to the webinar.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. So my presentation is not going to be too long because I want to just leave it open for questions, because I find that I'm going to give you the basics and give everybody the basics, and then if you have any questions, you can just send them towards me. And I know that we're going to do that at the end. So Bluefield Farms' initial research and development in the Bahamas started as the Aquaponic Research Center in 2013. The goal at the time was to bring awareness of the potential of aquaponic food production in the Bahamas and how this alternative to growing food could benefit the wider Bahamian population. Agricultural development in the Bahamas has always been slightly limited due to the fact that our soil has a little bit of a poor quality. And this is because the Bahamas is made out of long dead coral and limestone. What the coral does is it adds this excessive amount of calcium to the soil, which in turn increases the pH, making nutrient uptake by the plants difficult, leading to lower quality crops and low yields, unlike the rest of the Caribbean or somewhere in the other wider Caribbean, where their land has been formed by vulcanization and they have that really rich nutrient soil. In the Bahamas, farmers, I tend to have to build up the richness of the nutrients in the soil before planting, which can be very expensive. But in 2016, we began our commercial aquaponic operation, servicing hotels, restaurants, supermarkets, purveyors, and to local and international chefs. In 2019 is when we underwent our rebranding to do what most now know to our rebranding, which most people know us as Bluefields Farms, and we released those same restaurant quality vegetables and herbs into the supermarket so that the wider Bahamian public can have access to them. So we run, if you're familiar, we run, or not familiar, we run a 25,000 square feet production area that sits on a 5-acre farmland in the western end of New Providence. And we employ 7 people in total, and our small team produces 2,500 pounds of fresh produce every week. We have a lot of people calling our farm, sending us emails, messages, asking what type of crops that we have available. So we focus more on leafy greens, and these would include salad mixes with various kinds of lettuce, live herbs, which include basil, cilantro, chives, parsley, mint, and most recently oregano and thyme. Microgreens, which would typically be sold to the restaurants. We've made it available to stores and to the wider public, so that if anybody wants to, pretend to be a chef at home, they can have the same type of quality greens that we provide. We also produce a small amount of vegetables for restaurants, which includes Swiss chard, kale, bok choy, spring onions, and edible flowers, which will soon be moved into the stores in the near future. So we really focus, aquaponics really focuses on our operation, at least, focuses on the leafy greens, the more nutrient-rich greens. So let me go into what aquaponics is. So aquaponics is a food production system that combines aquaculture, which is raising fish, and hydroponics, which is the cultivation of plants in water in a closed recirculating system. This allows us to have complete control over the production of our produce. So nutrient water from fish production provides fertilizer for the plant growth. In turn, the plants filter and purify the water for the fish. So it's a symbiotic relationship that happens between the vegetables that we have and then the fish that we have on site. So just to break it down again, the fish are fed and they excrete ammonia. Nitrosomonas bacteria converts ammonia to nitrite. Nitrobacter, and this is where it gets technical, Nitrobacter converts nitrite to nitrate. And as you know, plants love nitrate. And so they soak it up and they get it from the nutrient-rich water. And this filtered clean water is reoxygenated and it's sent right back to the fish. So again, we talk about a symbiotic relationship when it comes to aquaponics, and this is exactly what it is, right? So benefits of aquaponics. We produce fish and vegetables in one system. So we make sure the fish are fed and the fish make sure the plants are fed. We produce up to 3 to 5 times the amount of food per square meter, as opposed to conventional agricultural operations. An aquaponic operation can be implemented in arid areas as there's no need for any soil whatsoever. And we also use 90% less water than conventional agricultural operations because we're only using rainwater, right? It's naturally organic since harmful pesticides and harsh chemicals are not used. We don't use any pesticides that are not organic grade. So the pesticides that we do use are biological pesticides, so which does not harm the produce or the fish or you, the end consumer. In aquaponics, because the greens are so rich in nutrient, you get a greater tasting produce. And the good thing about aquaponics is that typically, in some countries and far back, we would have people who would plant things seasonally and they would only reap seasonal crops. Well, the thing about aquaponics is that there's no need for that. There's no such thing as a season because this operation continues all year round. Depending on which crop you want, you can always have it if it's available for us. And so again, I want to go back to aquaponics and education. So our efforts to educate the public and provide internships are ongoing. Only as a result of the international pandemic, we've put a hold on internships and site tours of the farm. But in the past, we've provided school tours to private and public schools, and as well as international internships for students studying sustainable food production and aquaponics research projects. And we've also gotten, of course, people from students from the University of the Bahamas. In the past, we've also built systems for CV Bethel High School and the Stapleton School for Special Needs Kids. And we also offer agricultural training in aquaponics to teachers and instructors in the field. So we are a local and sustainable aquaponic farming operation, and we are trying to revolutionize farming and agriculture, well, traditional farming and agriculture in the Bahamas. And that's the end of my presentation. If we need anything else.
Thank you so much, Eddie, for that presentation. Really fascinating stuff there. And everyone, once again, we're going to be giving you an opportunity to ask questions at the end of all of our presentations. But for now, I'd like to play one more video from our sponsor, talking about technology and technology gone wrong.
Dr. Don Huber, I've never met the man personally, but I've read a lot of his research, and this man is right on. He's actually is a retired professor emeritus at Purdue University. He has a PhD in plant pathology. At one time, he was the top advisor to the U.S. military and Soviet biological warfare program. This guy here understands how to genetically modify plants. He understands the relationship it has to that, okay? Now, he has since come out and is speaking out against all the negative side effects of the GMOs. And I'm going to quote some of the things he's presenting to us. Some of you may have had a chance to see him. If you ever have a chance to go see this man's lecture, I highly recommend you do. And just to kind of give you a quick overview here, how many crops or percentage of our crops have been genetically modified? Soybeans, 94%, corn, 88%, cotton, 93%, granola, 90%, and that's in Canada. Sugar beets, 95%, alfalfa, hay, and not the sprouts, but the hay itself. That actually has been genetically modified. They're now selling genetically modified alfalfa. Now, this is in North America. We'll pretty well see this pretty consistent in South America as well. In other words, the Western Hemisphere is pretty well dominated by genetically modified plants. Now, there's one thing that is going to save us. There's a big grassroots movement trying to oppose genetically modified plants, and they're called the organic movement. Okay? Now, organic is good. Organic is good, but it does not necessarily mean it's nutritionally enhanced. So what we want to do is explain how that works here in a minute. So this is a quick overview of what we're faced with as far as genetically modified crops in the U.S. agriculture industry.
Jazadette Hepburn, I need you to please unmute your microphone at this time and ask your question.
Good afternoon, Ms. Malcolm. Good afternoon,
Hi.
speakers. Good afternoon, Bahamas. The first speaker talked about, well, I really came on thinking that one of the speakers would have talked about livestock. However, I think mainly it was about grains completely.
The livestock webinar is next weekend, next Sunday actually. We're going to dedicate an entire webinar just to livestock. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he did mention that a part of being growers and consumers, and it being not a complete registry that or information found with the Ministry of Agriculture or even I guess, other branches. I think that would include IDB. However, where do we start from there? I know this is my first time coming on to this Zoom, and I'm so thankful for you actually putting it together. But where do we go when we don't know who to go to? Because many of times, I think my dad had went, and he is on the island of New Providence. He is on a different island, trying to get not even assistance, but just measurement of opportunities to enhance his livestock. And now he is up to 70 cows, and it's been a very difficult movement because, you know, in New Providence, our life is so fast that sometimes we don't get a moment to take time and help or assist in our various areas. Where do we go? What do we do?
So,
There's a lot.
yeah, this is Dr. Davis. There are laws that are available for you to get funding, for you to get resources, or for you to just get the connection. Definitely looking into connecting with IECA, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, and Shakara is in the call now. She also has a hand raised, so you'll probably hear from her soon. But they can support farmers throughout the Bahamas in different ways, particularly by giving them the education for how to improve your business, how to improve your crop yields, to make it more healthy and sustainable. Then, of course, in my opinion, I believe that the Bahamas should be moving toward a better repository of our digital information. For one thing, now we don't even know who owns which land. So for you to register your farm and say, you know, I'm farming on this property, that becomes a major problem for you to be able to say, yeah, this is my farm, this is where I have my produce and stuff. Because as soon as you post that, someone can come and say that's their generational land and try to take that from you, and it could be a problem. But knowing where things are, who's the owner of the farm, and getting that out there is very important. So I think reaching out to IECA, definitely the Ministry of Agriculture has different support initiatives going on that you could reach out to them. And there's a huge community of farmers and growers. IECA has a great WhatsApp group that they're very cooperative and collaborative. And just joining that, you can hear a lot of stories from other farmers. People are trading like goats and stuff. It's a really interesting group. So definitely reach out there. And I think you should be able to reach any of the presenters after this as well for support.
How do I get in contact with AICA?
Well, I was just about to say she has her hand raised. Shakara Lightborn from AICA has her hand raised to ask a question. So Shakara, before you ask a question, answer her question, please, and then you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon, Michelle, and good afternoon, everybody. I didn't really have a question. I had more of a comment, and just because this is a very timely topic, I think Dr. Davis and Eddie O's did a really good job. You know, I was able to see Bluefield Farms from the inception in 2013. They've really grown exponentially. So proud of them. I mean, to the point where they could irrigate their plants from a cell phone at home. That's the level they're at in terms of technology. So kudos to them on that. And like Eddie says, they're very open to teaching people. I always bring people to the farm to see what they're doing because it's very interesting. And I invite anybody else to contact Eddie because they're very open in sharing what they're doing down there. In terms of the comment I had, like I said, this is a very timely topic because IECA is in the process regionally of developing an extension services app. And we've actually, this is a request from, IECA is governed by all the ministers of agriculture in the hemisphere. So the ministers of agriculture in the region, the Caribbean region, has asked IECA to assist, even with this COVID thing, assist in improving the extension services. Because not only in the Caribbean, extension being help to farmers from the ministry or wherever else is a huge problem. Like Ms. Hepburn said, her father has issues with his livestock and he'd like to find help information. And so we're in that process of trying to pilot an app, an extension app, so that farmers are able to find information. We had a meeting with the ministry. Well, actually, we had a little webinar with the ministry and their technical officers last week to determine which crops or which livestock we would start off. We would pilot the app with. So the pilot countries within AICA is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Bahamas, and Antigua and Barbuda. So we're going to start with those 3 countries, and then we're in the process of finding out which crops we're going to start with to try to pilot the app. And actually, we have a meeting with farmers on Tuesday to ask them what they think would be useful to them to the app, well, whether it be a call center or whether it be information about food safety or growing, I don't know, whatever it is would be useful for them as an app, an agricultural app. We're trying to find out that information. I've invited about 12 farmers already, but if there's anybody interested in attending that Zoom session, please let me know. In terms of Ms. Hepburn, yes, we do have a lot of information in terms of livestock, particularly feeding. I don't know if feeding is an issue for your father. We have a book specifically for feeding of ruminants and creating forage banks for ruminants because they don't eat a lot of commercial feed. So it's just a matter of planting the right forage for them to eat. I don't know, kind of, my background is in livestock, so maybe I'd be able to help you in that area. And whatever I don't know, I could point you to some folks there at the ministry. So that's basically all I had to say. If you had any other questions, just let me know. Oh, in terms of the database, sorry. The database, we do have a database, you know, like Dr. Davis says, we have quite a bit of information on people. It's just a matter of putting it together. And it's because we're so behind, I shouldn't say this, but we're kind of behind in agriculture. There's so many different things to do. And because there's so many different things to do, there's so many different opportunities and so many gaps for people to get into, to even create businesses out of, from the agricultural health and food safety aspect of it, to the extension services part of it, to the agri-processing part of it, to the agri-tourism part of it, all different areas, all along the chain. There are different opportunities to get into businesses, and even through the use of technology or otherwise.
The next hand raised is from Lavon Nemore. Lavon Nemore, can you go ahead, please, and unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Okay, good afternoon, all. Probably 2 questions. One, what role does BAMSI have in terms of, I guess what Dr. Davis said about labeling or identifying fruits and stuff like that? What role does BAMSI play in ensuring that these things are properly done? And then the next thing is the challenge that was sent out for us to do backyard gardening. For those of us who don't know, how do we start and what do we plant in terms of getting a backyard garden going? So anyone can answer that if possible.
Yeah, I think Ryan can support a lot of the backyard farming, like how to get it started.
Actually, before you go on, we actually dedicated last week's webinar to backyard farming. So Lavon, I'm assuming that you are a new registrant. I will go ahead and send you the video link where you can access the video from last week's webinar. That it was a full 2 hours just on backyard farming. So that'll answer your question there.
Okay. And also, like, just me personally, I have tons of different vegetables and fruits that I'm growing, but you can look on YouTube for the easiest things to start with. I have all types of onions, garlic, mint, oregano, just growing in the yard. And so I never will have to go and get them anymore. For BAMSI, it's the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute. And they're not just about the economic side of agriculture, but also a lot of the research and study of how can we grow things better in the Bahamas, and then supporting people to go and visit their properties and learn about them. So when you reach out to BAMSI, you can find out about their workshops, their site visits, and things like that. And so that can help them that can help you definitely to learn how to get started Occasionally, they do packages where you go and do a workshop and learn about how to get started. And then with the cost of that workshop, you'll get something like a backyard irrigation setup and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I've seen BAMSI work in the past. But part of joining a class or workshop like that is you also have a cohort of people that you learn with. And then as staying in contact with them, you will have access to their knowledge and experience and, you know, like trade seeds and stuff like that as well.
I hope that answered your questions. So I see 2 hands raised, but before we go to those 2 questions, I'm going to play another video from our sponsor.
Since the early 90s, GM crops increased herbicide use by 527 million pounds over the first 16 years, up to 227% of Roundup Ready soybeans per acre. Okay, over 22 varieties of glyphosate-resistant weeds. You see this all the time in the agriculture industry, these huge implements out there spraying these crops, okay? Now they can actually spray chemical on these plants, kill the weeds without killing the plant. Now, how does that work? Well, I'll explain that here in a minute. Residual effects of glyphosate or Roundup is magnified each year. It reduces minerals in the plants, increases the use of synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, fungicides, and it also increases diseases in plants. Who profits from this? Well, we saw earlier, the chemical companies gain from the sale of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and also chemical fertilizers. Okay, glyphosate is a strong metal chelator. Now, this is how it basically works. Glyphosate prevents mineral uptake into the plant. That's a really important concept to understand. Now, if there's not enough minerals in that plant because the plant's immune system relies on those minerals to maintain a healthy immune system. I don't understand all the science behind this. I'm just kind of summarizing this. But basically what ends up happening is this, is that lack of mineral uptake by the weeds. Now the weeds will succumb to a fungus or disease and dies. Now the corn, the soybeans, all these genetically modified plants called Roundup Ready has been altered to where they're not affected by the lack of minerals. Their immune system is not affected by it, so it continues to thrive without the negative side effects that the weeds experience. And essentially what we're doing is we're giving the weeds AIDS. The same concept, the AIDS virus destroys the immune system, and eventually people will succumb and die to the complications of AIDS from the diseases that was the complication of AIDS. Okay? That's the same concept what we're doing with the with weeds. Now, it also, for example, it limits mineral uptake in plants, such as the primary nutrients was NPK. That's the chemical fertilizers. Okay, that's why farmers have to use more chemical fertilizers now. Now, secondary nutrients is your calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Of course, your micronutrients, there's 10 of those. The glyphosate is toxic to the soil organisms and reduces nutrient availability. It reduces the plant's photosynthesis ability. Photosynthesis is, the leaves of the plant collect sunlight. Sunlight stimulates that photosynthesis, causes nutrient uptake by the plants. I'll explain how that works a little bit later as well. It also causes fruit, bud drop, and other abnormal hormonal effects. Reduces nitrogen fixation in legumes such as soy and alfalfa. It accumulates in the soil for years. It's not very biodegradable. So those are some of the negative side effects of the glyphosate itself. But the good news is that we can overcome the negative side effect by mineral supplementation. And we've been learning how to applying minerals to plants and be able to overcome the negative side effects. So that's the good news. The good news is that before the application of micronutrients, the liquid EFM, which I'll explain here in a minute, after glyphosate is applied to Roundup Ready crops. For animals and humans, plant mineral supplementation to feed, food, and water. So that's one way what we can do to overcome.
You may question, why is all of this important in these videos that we have been seeing? Well, first and foremost, we all know that the Bahamas, we import, 95% of our food. And so I found it interesting that he said that these Roundup Ready GMO crops don't need minerals to thrive. But we as humans do. And you can call me a conspiracy theorist as much as you like, but I find it very suspect that Big Pharma that's creating these genetically modified plants have modified them so that they don't need minerals, which we as humans need. And when we don't get the minerals we as humans need, then we become ill. And where do we have to go, or where do we typically go once we become ill? Big pharma. So it's like this cycle that and we have to find a way to break free. And one of the things that Youngevity specializes in is bringing health and healing to us humans through nutrition, by giving our bodies the raw materials that they need in order to function. And so the raw materials, we call it the 90 for Life program. They include 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 3 essential fatty acids. And Dr. Joel Wallach, who is the founder of Youngevity, discovered that once you give your body the 90 essential nutrients it needs, then as God designed us, your body will start to heal itself if it is suffering from a disease that is caused by a nutritional deficiency. Dr. Wallach discovered that over 900 diseases are a result of a nutritional deficiency. And so if we give our bodies what they need through the food, yes, but also through supplementation, that our bodies will heal. The challenge is, because so much of the food that we're consuming is genetically modified, we're not getting the nutrition in our food anymore. And so this is why you as farmers, you have such an important role to play, because we have to, in the Bahamas, get to the point where we're not only feeding ourselves, but we are feeding ourselves with food that is nutritionally dense. So we're not just filling our stomachs, but we're getting the food that we need to reverse all of these chronic illnesses that are killing us as a people. And so hopefully you will see a need or have some interest in learning more about the Youngevity program for farmers, so that we can start, feeding our people healthier food. That's really what it's all about, because we, as you all know, are one of the sickest nations in the world. And there's only one way that we can reverse that, and that is through nutrition. It's not going to be reversed by Big Pharma, because they are in the business of managing illness, not healing you. So without any further ado on that, let's go back to the questions. Next in the queue is Arrington Thompson. Arrington Thompson, can you please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am impressed with the array of speakers you have today, and I learned a lot about what they do and what we can do in terms of technology. I believe that technology is going to be the area where young people will become more interested in agriculture. There were 2 areas, though, that they didn't touch on, and it might be because it was not a part of their presentation, and I just want to mention them in passing. What we have done with a lot of farmers is to give them an opportunity to learn how to be in touch with other farmers through their smartphones. So in using your smartphone, there are so many things that a farmer who is not familiar with technology can do. He can use picture time, he can use WhatsApp, he can use FaceTime, he can use voice memos, he can use his camera, he can use his telephone to help him with irrigation, as Shakara mentioned earlier, that Blue Fields do. And so if farmers who are not technologically inclined can just utilize their smartphone to take pictures and send them via WhatsApp or get questions and answers, that's a way that we could get those present farmers who are not into technology to begin to do some things. And the second area I wanted to mention was drone technology, which I'm hoping will be the way of the future, where a lot of the things that young people want to do could make it interesting for them, because they can now sit in their office. They don't have to go in the sun. They don't need a straw hat. They don't need a cutlass. You simply sit down at your computer and do all those things that farmers did when they had to go in the sun. And so I just wanted to mention those 2 items, but I'm very impressed with what other people are doing in technology, and I hope to listen to the rest of the questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arrington. Great points that you raised. Do any of the speakers want to respond to Arrington?
Um, y- yeah, I think that all the speakers, all of us did mention using the smartphones in different ways or connecting with social media. Shikara also mentioned it, I think, briefly. But yes, that's definitely a way to go. Part of it is that there's a major threshold that we have to get to in the Bahamas, internet-wise and communications-wise, for us to be able to use a lot of this. Imagine sending, video from your farm or copious amounts of data, the moisture, wind, temperature, and stuff like that, when you don't have reliable internet access. So we need to have a foundational infrastructure that allows these things to happen. With the drones, actually, a lot of my master's work was on remote sensing on farms. And you could fly a drone over a farm and actually detect the areas that need more water or maybe are not exhibiting the healthy colors. And then you can treat that particular area with the nutrients it needs or the exact amount of water, so you get precision agriculture. Or you could do the same thing with sensors in the soil. And this, again, this is a way to integrate the computer technology with your irrigation system and that traditional knowledge that the farmers have. But there's a threshold that you have to get over where you have to teach the local Bahamians, young and old, how to use it, and before you can even start integrating it into the farming practice. And so those are some thresholds that we have to get over. In terms of the GMO discussion that we kind of briefly crossed over, GMOs can be really bad in some ways, and they can be really good in some ways as well. I think the major problem that we have in the Bahamas is a lot of people's view of agriculture is large-scale monoculture agriculture. So everyone wants to grow one thing for 200 acres and think that's going to work in the Bahamas. Our system is not set up like that. We have a very small amount of people on each island. If you grew an acre of produce and you just had, one or two of each type of tree, you could probably sustain your family and sell to your entire community and do reasonably well if the community dedicated themselves to purchasing from their local farmers. But when you bring in monoculture crops, you have to have that GMO so that all the bugs don't eat that one crop. Because you have that one crop and then all these bugs come to eat it and it will be a disaster. You have to spend millions of dollars in pesticides. We can't do that. So you have to have a mix of different things so that when you have that one bug come in, it only has enough for it to survive maybe one generation and then that's it. But if you have 2,000 acres of the same corn, then you have to do something different. And that's, the Bahamas isn't set up for that. Plus, if we bring things in with GMO in it, then that pollen can go inside our other species. Right now, our wild lantana is being polluted genetically by pollen from the lantana that people bring in for landscaping. And so now it doesn't have the same chemical constituents where if you want to use it for like chicken pox or whatever. And so we're losing our traditional medicine and stuff like that. So yeah, again, we need the technology, the study of our local produce, our local species, and also some predictive studies to say what would happen if we allow someone to bring in these genetically modified organisms or to conduct large-scale agriculture. Even with the marijuana and hemp discussions now, it's very complicated. But we do have technology to study it and to address it.
I agree with you with these smartphones. They are amazing right now. I have really taken to using mine. And a lot of people are making a connection, let's say with keeping images. Google has, I don't mean to promote them, but I actually use the Google Suite quite a bit because it's as easy as me going in my garden on a daily basis and snapping a pic of my entire garden or even taking video of it. and I can just let my phone automatically save it to my Google's photos. And over the years, you build up an automatic library. And recently, it's Google has shown me, memories, and the memories line up. So the memory will pop up, and I see an image that I took a couple of years ago, and then I can go out there and compare that to the condition that my tree is in now, or the plant that's in now. And then you can tie that into to spreadsheets. Like I am using a lot of spreadsheets now for the farming because it helps me to keep track again of the plants. When I started to get any insects or whenever the plant was stressed, that's a lot of information that I can put in there to continue to build, because the more information I feel that we can gather about it, the more that we can be done. And I guess it also would play into that whole GMO debate that we need information. And if we don't have that information regarding what we have locally, then we really can't, it doesn't make the argument for, let's say, bringing in GMO seed or keeping it out. We need to know what can grow here. And it's so easy now for us to use social media, to use our smartphones to track this information. It's really at this step now about pulling that information together and using it for good, I guess.
All right, thank you. I wanna say something as it relates to the GMOs, because we in the webinar before last, we focused on whether or not the Bahamas should become certified organic. And one of the things that was revealed in that is that if the plants that if you feed your crops with the minerals that they need, if they have adequate mineral uptake, the bricks level will be so high, that the sugar level will be so high in those crops that it would be difficult, or if not impossible, for bugs to digest it. And we actually played a video during that webinar, where he actually showed the leaves from a farm called Rodney's Ranch, where you could barely find any activity from bugs, because even if you found one little hole in a leaf, the bug wouldn't continue to eat the plant because of the fact of the high level, high what they call bricks level, as a result of it being fortified with minerals. And so that whole thing of, oh, we need the GMO because of the bugs, I think that's just a part of the narrative that is being put out there by the persons who would be benefiting most from that. The problem is our bodies were not designed to, our bodies don't recognize the genetically modified foods. They just don't, because they're not. Matter of fact, one of the clips that I want to play, not in this particular webinar, but next week when we're talking about livestock, one of the things that's going to be revealed is that if you give an animal a choice, if you put a bowl of genetically modified corn next to a bowl of corn that's not genetically modified, and you let loose, say, a rat, the rat is always going to go to the natural food over the genetically modified food, because they know the difference. And so our bodies can't handle that stuff. And this is why it is leading to so much illness, because we think that we are, so smart that we can create these superfoods that resist bugs and all this kind of stuff. But again, it's not, they're designed to not uptake the nutrients, because it's the nutrients that will keep those bugs off of your plants. And so again, that's just a part of this ongoing debate about GMOs. But quite frankly, I don't think that we have the luxury of embracing GMOs, because we already have so much sickness in this country. And as you will hear in a clip that I'm going to play in a little bit, there's this movement now across Europe to stop the GMOs because of the link to cancer and other debilitating illnesses. But let's now go back to the questions. Ginny McKinney has been waiting for a bit. And so Ginny, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask the question, please.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for this program. It's great. What also I'd like to say, the Dr. Wallach's thing on minerals is, I am so behind that. I read it nearly every night to just keep on learning. And the lack of it in us is really what leads to so much of our distress and disease. But one thing, and Arrington knows I have gone on about this all the time, is just having a touchstone, a central website, or where all of this that everybody is speaking about can be gathered, that people can contribute, whether it's looking for a machine that you need to clear some land, or a refrigerated truck, or where to get seeds, or how to get started with hydroponic or aquaculture. There's so many good ideas, but it is so difficult trolling through the wealth of information and then picking what really will apply for us here. So my two thoughts are this. We do need to create a website that speaks to all of this and allows people to contribute, but also to take away. And that could also be the buyers of the vegetables, the commercial ones, as well as us, the private sector, the people who are growing, and get that into action. And then, as what the doctor said, also advising on what crops were possibly more popular. Also researching, what crops grow well in further south of us, maybe would not apply as much to us because we don't have that volcanic rock and everything. But also, where does the Ministry of Agriculture feature in all this? I mean, I have a lot of time for Minister Pintard. He has his degree in this, so I think he's a wonderful leader for this. But the mechanisms and the government are difficult to deal with, and for every time I listen to farmers talking, they are frustrated. So I'm so grateful for what you've done and all of the people that are contributing, but I do feel that we need to create a website that will allow us all to thrive together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. What I was actually doing was trying to put together a database for the new registrants. You can, once I send you, and I see a lot of people are asking about the videos from the previous webinars, I'll attach the links to all of them. They are actually up on YouTube. So I'll just go ahead and send you the links as well as the contacts for everybody that presented today, including Shakara. And I just got word from Emmy Robinson, who is scheduled to be one of our speakers. And guess what, guys? She's all the way, Emmy is all the way in China. So Emmy just got on the call, and I'm going to give Emmy the opportunity to make the presentation that she was scheduled to make. But the website idea is a brilliant idea. As to where the Ministry of Agriculture falls in all of this, I really don't know. The most thing that I can do is we're making these videos available to the minister, and hopefully they're watching them. I know that last week, was it last week? Yes, we had somebody on from the Department of Agriculture who is responsible for backyard farming, and he brought a lot of really great information. And so, I don't know, but that website idea is a brilliant idea. And I don't know, maybe we're onto something here. Maybe we can, I don't know, Shakara and Arrington and a couple other people on here, maybe we can all get together to try to do something like that, where we can provide some kind of one-stop shop for everyone to go and have access to all this information and contacts, etc. So let's talk after the webinar to see if this is something you guys might want to look at. All right. So Emmy is here. This is good. So, and I see the two more questions, but I want to get Emmy's contribution in first. A major is in engineering, but she's also a farmer and is very interested in farming and technology and getting other farmers interested in this area and what it can do for them, even on a smaller scale. She says she believes that the fear for many is the learning curve, and technology on the whole can be intimidating, but her research in China is to see how advanced technology can be used to help small scale and large scale farmers. And so she's in the middle of examinations, and she was working on a paper, and she said, Michelle, I'm not sure that I can make it. I will if I can. So Emmy, all the way in China, thank you so much for being here today. And you can go ahead and unmute your microphone, and the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Well, good evening. I'm saying morning here. It's about 5:30 here in China. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I have been trying to log on for the last few sessions, and unfortunately, connections here get very disconnected at certain times of the day in the evening. So I actually barely made it on. So at any point in time, I actually can be disconnected. So I'm going to keep it brief. My major here is engineering. I have a focus on precision farming, which basically covers a few areas, but I am looking more into drone technology that can be used by different farmers. I know that there are farmers back home that use drones right now for basically security purposes. I don't know if other speakers have talked about it, but I'm looking at it to use drone technology for the looking at the health of your plants. So that's one of the technologies I'm researching right now, as well as most importantly for me is the soil quality. That's another issue that I know that some farmers have expressed, not knowing what parts of your field are having issues in cultivating plants. So also I'm looking at the sensor, using sensors in soil quality and being able to do that on a small scale, because I know the first thing that comes to most people's minds is the cost. So I'm also looking at what can be done on a small scale that is not going to have a large impact in terms of cost for farmers. Also, the main concern I know for some farmers is theft on farms. And some farms would have security systems installed. So I'm also looking at the cost of putting in sensors for small farms as well, just to alert farmers and if there's any movement or be able to capture images, which will help in hopefully prosecution of those who are indulging in such activities. We're also looking here on crop health monitoring. That's another research that I'm looking at in terms of just what issues are occurring with which crops at which time of the year and what can be done to alleviate that problem, and most importantly, forecasting for what you can plant and what your yields will be in the future. So I wanted to keep it brief because, like I said, I can see when my connectivity starts to drop. Sorry I wasn't able to be on earlier to hear what the other presenters would say, but that's just on a large scale for advanced technology that I'm looking at. On a smaller scale, I got to catch what I think it was Ginny McKinney that just spoke about in terms of setting up websites. That's one part that I got into when I first started technology in terms of marketing and use of websites for farmers. And I'm actually working on an app right now with a farm here, a remote farm that struggled during COVID-19 here. Their issue was is that they were growing so much, and when the shutdown happened, they were not able to put out messages to their clients to say, hey, we still have what's available. So a lot of farms here are now taking the approach of putting everything in an app form. I would say that the communication here is good between the government and the farmers, where they were actually able to purchase a lot from farmers and make deliveries in terms of their community workers. I was really impressed of how everything was done here during the shutdown in Wuhan. They were actually able to go into farms, make purchases, and distribute to the various communities. And a lot of that was done through apps, because there was a period of time where I did not have to leave where I was. Everything I just ordered online was delivered to my door, delivered to my gate where I'm living. So I would say that we need to start embracing more technology in terms of how we market our farms. I know that a lot of persons would try to send out messages through WhatsApp, and some farms may actually have Facebook pages. But we have been pushing here the use of apps, which everyone can just log on, look at what a farm has available and send it out to their customers. And that's a project I've taken on in the last few weeks of helping develop an app for a farm, and actually they're adding other farms to that app as well. So I've actually talked to, I think it was Dr. Ancelino Davis. We have been speaking on how we can start to put it together, a database of all farmers, so they can actually start to use an app for testing to look at how they can push their products forward.
Okay. All right, Emmy, thank you so much for being
You're
here.
welcome.
Really appreciate that. Okay, so I see 2 hands raised. I'm going to play another clip, and then immediately after the clip, we're going to go to the questions that are waiting to be asked.
Hi, I'm Ron Farrell, and basically this is a confession of a former owner of a chemical fertilizer plant. We went terribly wrong in the agriculture industry by promoting and utilizing synthetic fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. It virtually, I'll give you the bottom line, it's destroyed the soil. It's destroyed our opportunity for a better life on this planet. And let me tell you why. 100 years ago, 2 German scientists, in fact, Fritz Haber was a professor of chemistry at a large university in Germany, and Karl Bosch, an engineer, and also owned a chemical company. They got their heads together and decided that they could take nitrogen out of the air, bypassing the plant's regular way of putting nitrogen in the soil for the use of the plants and other plants. The problem with that theory is it's created a major issue that started 100 years ago and is continuing on today, and it's getting worse. Our crops are actually getting worse. We're seeing less results from the fertilizer we're putting on. We have to add more and more and more fertilizer, chemical fertilizer. And if we would get back to God's plan, legume plants like this one here, any broadleaf plant is a legume. It takes nitrogen out of the air, which is an inert gas. We breathe it. Doesn't hurt us. Doesn't hurt the plant. Takes it out of the air along with carbon monoxide. Runs through the system, through all the microbial action in the soil, as long as it's organic. I mean, if you got chemicals down there, the microbes aren't there to do what they need to do. But organic, clean, organic, well-functioning soil, all this is working exactly as like I'm describing. And after that, then the plant is actually expels oxygen. It releases oxygen into the air, and that's what we want to breathe. So God's perfect system is perfect. And by shortcutting that, by circumventing that with anything synthetic, we've done some severe damage, not only to the plant, but the animals that eat the plant, or when we eat the plant, we got an issue in our health issues. I personally believe we got major health issues from this synthetic way of life, this counterfeit way of life. Now, to go back to why we even do such a thing, or why it has been done that way in the past, it's always to speed up a process. People think that God is, I guess, too slow. And they're always trying to speed up or to improve on. That's got to be 2 big jokes. Why would we want to try to do that? Why would we think we could speed up anything or improve on what God does? So I didn't know this. I'm 70 years old, growing up on that ranch and owning that fertilizer plant, manufacturing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tons of fertilizer, sold them into the area, spread fertilizer into the area. And nobody knew it. I really believe, even our agronomists from universities didn't seem to know anything about what I'm talking about right now. We didn't know we were hurting the soil. We didn't know we were hurting ourselves, but we were doing some severe damage. It needs to stop. But 100 years of synthetic farming should be enough. We got to get back to the original plan, what most people call organic. But that's nothing but God's way, His way of doing it. Nothing missing, nothing broken. Let's just do it that way. And we're going to see some dramatic results. I mean, I've got some ways that I would share with anybody on what we could do to make a big, big difference. One of the things is and it's already on the market, that Liquid EFM is a perfect product to end this cycle. Use it, put it on the soil, 75 essential minerals. It's as simple as that.
And for those of you who are new registrants, when I send out the email, I will send out additional information about the longevity products of Bloomin' Minerals and Liquid EFM, how they work, costing, everything, okay? You'll get all of that in an email that I will send to all of the registrants. All right, so without any further ado, let's go back to the questions. Master Kenitro, you're up. So please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How you all are doing? All right. Now, first off, it's not really a question. I have a comment. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who's made their presentation. You are amazing, because just to do this means that you work stepping in the right direction. Now, first off, here are some of my viewpoints. As a young Bahamian, I realized that one of our sticking points when it comes to moving forward as a country and self-sufficiency in food is the fact that we keep looking outside of ourselves. We're looking in China, we're looking in America, looking at all these people. What are they doing? When in fact, we have local farmers who are already producing, and all they need is our support so that they could direct the path of which we're supposed to follow. Now, with that being said, one key feature is a blueprint, meaning a basic system of how we can organize our way of doing things. For instance, farming is a business, all right? Meaning that we are in the business of growing food, as well as we must be able to handle marketing, etc. Now, a few things we have to look at. Instead of people putting, Bahamians wanting to put money, oh, let me put stock in buying gold. You can't eat gold. How about we have a Bahamian stock, where that is a farmer stock, where we say, okay, Bahamians can put monies into farmers' stocks and help them have funding to be able to carry out larger productions. Meaning that Bahamians who are already doing this, they have the answers already. Next is that we know that with COVID-19, we've seen the change and shift of how tourism is able to flow. Now, since we don't have tourism, now guess what? We have a lot of people who want to work. So now we need a marketing department for farming. We need a worker department, someone who deals with the healthcare and farming. So therefore, we have all that we need. All we simply need to do is put together the blueprint. So we no longer need to look outside of ourselves. Remember, we are island people, and we should have the answer. We live closest to nature. People across the world come to us to be able to experience relief, to be able to experience nature. So we don't need anything else but ourselves. So I like how this forum has helped us, and that's what he said. And also too, thank you, Mr. Antonino Davis. I think that's your last name. Antonino helped us back when I was inside senior high school. He helped us win a competition, a film reel competition, when we started with the Casarinas. So yeah, that's pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. Reach out to me after this.
I will. All right.
Okay, thank you so much for your comments. Next up in the queue is Cheryl H. Cheryl H., can you go ahead and please unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Good afternoon to everyone and to the panelists. I missed the first week. The other weeks I've caught. I just have to look and make sure I have your recording, Michelle. Mine is not so much a question, but to share with a lady who wanted to know how can she get started and with what. I started my backyard farming because it's something I like doing. It's a form of exercise. It's good for you mentally. And so after work, I just started off, and she can start with just items and seedlings from within her kitchen. She can start with the end products of your celery, your cabbage, and plant on those. Peas, for example, I started from 2011, 2012, and I don't think I've purchased a can of peas from then. So just imagine your savings. And so with all of this and with the cupboard, I am ready to bloom. I just planted onions and a whole lot of other stuff. So it's not only for sustaining yourselves at home, but healthier living, but then you start off with your extended family, the mom and those, and who knows, if you go beyond that, you can even offer, trade, share, or sell in your community. So I just wanted to add that for those who are wondering how can they get started. You can start with all of those things that you just normally dispose of, and to enrich your soil, all your peels, onions, potatoes, whatever you use in the kitchen, you just put those in your bucket in the backyard. If you don't want to compost it in liquid where it gets smelly, you can just put them directly into a large 15 or 20 gallon pot or 5 gallon bucket with soil, and as they deteriorate down, along with all your garden clippings, you mow the grass, You put that along around your trees, or she can do a raised bed, either with blocks or wood, and you start adding your compost to that, and you will enrich your garden. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Once again, last week's webinar was strictly on backyard gardening, and so once you get the link to that, there was a lot of information provided about where to get the composting drum, and a lot of information. Okay, so like I said, I'll send out an email with the link to that and all the other webinars we've done so far, and you'll be able to get all of the information that you will need as to how to get started, where to go, etc. All right, Emmy has her hand raised, so I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but Emmy, you've got the floor. Can you go ahead and unmute your microphone, please?
Hi, it's actually a comment to the gentleman that's just spoke. He made a statement saying that the Bahamas should not have to look outside. I would have to say that for any country that is trying to get to the point of sustainability in terms of agriculture, we do have to look outside to other countries that has been doing it for quite some number of years, to the point where they're able to export and actually feed themselves. So we do have to look for other countries' assistance, and United States and China are able to help in terms of technology, in terms of providing information. So that was just my comment. The Bahamas has to be able to reach out to other countries to assist.
Thank you, Emmy. I want to play one last clip, and this clip is going to talk about an opportunity, because in every adversity there's an opportunity, and we've heard in the previous clips from Youngevity about the problem with the genetically modified seeds and crops, etc. And luckily now there is a movement that is growing where people are calling for more organically grown foods. This creates an opportunity for us here in the Bahamas.
Here's another interesting, this is out of the Wall Street Journal. Russia suspends import and use of American corn after study reveals cancer risks. This was the Wall Street Journal in September of 2012. Now think about this. This made Wall Street news, but it did not make Main Street news. That's another reason why there's a lot of people, the Europeans and the Asians, have not bought off on this genetically modified grains. And that's probably what's going to save us in the long run, is because they are not willing to buy into that. And now there's more and more demand for organic grains here in America. We're now, for the first couple of years, we're importing organic grains. We cannot keep up with the demand. So if you are a farmer and you want to make a lot of money, switch over to organic farming.
This is an opportunity, I think, for Bahamian farmers, like I said, to fill that void, because you heard him, they can't keep up with the demand. As more and more people wise up and realize that the genetically modified stuff is really helping to kill us. So I think it creates a great opportunity for our local farmers to help to fill that void, and I think a great income can be had as a result. We have a question from David Allen. David, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question. David, can you unmute your microphone?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is David Allen from Eleuthera. I had a question for Mr. Eddie from the Bluefields farm. I don't know if it's personal or not, but then, we know the cost of aquaponics and hydroponics is very expensive. And I wonder if you had any help from government when it comes to funding, or if you had your personal funding, or whatever the case may be. Like I say again, I don't know if it's a personal question or what. And one more thing, where did you get your seeds? Where are you getting your seeds from that you grow on your farm? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So we weren't government funded. We came up with the capital ourselves. But if you wanna, when all of this the pandemic has passed and you want to come to the farm, we actually give tours of the farm so you can see how we have done it. We have replicated this at, like I said in my presentation, we've replicated this in schools, at CV Bethel and the Stapleton School. So it's not something that's unless you want to do it large scale like we have, it's not something that's impossible to do. And as far as sourcing seeds, we typically just order our seeds from abroad because, as you know, there aren't any providers of seeds for the particular types, or a lot of the seeds that we would need, the volume that we would need in order to provide the volume that we provide to the Bahamian public. So we'd order those from abroad. But again, I don't know if you're in Nassau or if you're on the Family Island. So we get our seeds from the U.S., but I don't know if you're local or from the Family Island. But if you are in Nassau, when this pandemic is over, we can definitely give you a tour so you can see how it works, and you can also we'll make sure that you have photos of how you can replicate this on a smaller scale. It's quite simple, to be honest. I don't know. If
all right, thank you, sir. I'm in Eaglethorpe.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? There's internet, so what we can do is just give you a virtual tour, so that you see how it works. And I think Luther is actually a really pretty good place in order for this to have your own sort of like farm using aquaponics as well.
Yes, sir. We have the Island School up here that does very well with that. Also,
yeah.
The Island School in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I spent like a year. I almost went to the Island School, so I know it, and I did a tour there as well, so I know how it works. And I love the Island School, actually. It's an amazing place. But yeah, we'll let you reach out to me. Just send me your email and all that stuff, and just get in contact, and we can definitely make something happen.
Thank you very much.
As far as how it works.
All right.
Thank you. Dr. Davis, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, so I wanted to touch on this discussion that we're having on dependence on other countries. And so in part, firstly, I have in this yard, and I'm renting, but I've put in about 20 something different species of edible plants since the beginning of this corona apocalypse. And so I have all of them inside the yard, and me personally, I am becoming more independent from the economics of the food situation in the Bahamas. And this is what we need to look forward to as a country. Perhaps we will still want to purchase things that are grown on the large scale, or things that are not conducive to our climate, like growing sheep for wool or things like that. That's just not something that we're going to be able to do here and be able to supply the whole Bahamas. But at the same time, right now, our government is in discussions with the World Trade Organization. One of the videos that you showed just now showed how certain countries in Europe stop accepting GMOs. Now, when you ascend to the World Trade Organization, it makes things easier for you to sell between countries. But once you can point out, listen, this product that you're trying to sell to Bahamians, that is going to hurt Bahamians. Once you say that, then you could say, no, we're not accepting that without any repercussions. But right now, one, we're not in the World Trade Organization, so we don't have those defenses in the global arena right now. So when the US wants to sell us something, we have to deal with that treaty on our own by ourselves, where the US could force things on us, or whatever other country could force things on us. If you are interested in learning more about what countries are choosing to accept or not accept, or how they're changing these agreements and all the chemicals and stuff, epingalert.org actually lets you get notifications every time. Like right now, Canada has said like there's certain pesticides that you can no longer sell into their country. the US has a bunch that they say that you cannot bring into their country, but they're still exporting to other countries. And you have a lot of these things that as farmers, this is something that you may or may not know about, but it's going to impact you and your ability to be able to bring things into the country as well as to sell on the global market. And you also have, we're talking about this organic certification now. In the Bahamas, we have the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality, and they have technical committees for standards development. So now we need the farmers to get together and research what standards you want, what organic standards you want to comply with, what labeling standards you want to comply with, and go and have a committee established. I can't remember how many people you need at a minimum, but once you go to them and say, we need a committee for standards in farming and agriculture in the Bahamas, then you can go to them and they will set that up for you so that you make the standards and those standards influence government policy and law. And this is very important for us to understand that we're not working in a vacuum. There's thousands and thousands of papers on what's accepted around the world and what standards are used. And we need to start looking into them seriously before we can make those decisions. And if anyone wants to discuss establishing one of those committees, they can reach out to me and I can put you in contact with the right people.
All right, Shakara, question or comment? You can go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Oh, I just really wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Davis was saying in terms of getting information. I think I understand what the young man was talking about having the information within ourselves and within country, and I agree with that to a certain extent. In that we have to tailor what the information that the world has to offer to our needs, and it's not a cookie cutter type solution for what one country has. It'll work for us because we, just by the fact that we're an archipelago, makes things a little different in all the areas of agriculture. And I think people don't understand how extensive the area of agriculture is. It's literally from farm to table and everything in between. So in terms of getting information from other countries, I think, we shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. We should learn from the mistakes of others, and that's why it's so important to have organizations like mine. AICA, I'm a Bahamian, but I represent an international organization. Our headquarters is in Costa Rica, but I have access to 35 different countries in the hemisphere. So if I have a problem, I call, I get technical assistance, and then we just tailor it to what we need here. And that's a very useful network to have. But I think maybe he was a little misunderstood in that, saying that we don't have to go outside. But at the same time, we have to play the global game. It's a global village right now, and we have to be in touch with what is going on in the world.
Okay, final question of the day from Jenny McKinney. It's 4 minutes to 6. And so let's make this the final question of the day. Jenny, the floor is yours. Please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Actually, Michelle, I was going to sort of say, I didn't think America was saying, that to fully adopt whatever was international. I think she was saying what Shakara just said, is that we would pick what fit for us and what helped us advance ourselves, and that it wouldn't be good to isolate ourselves. In respect of techniques and new ways of monitoring and new ways of water conservation, etc. There's just so much to be learned. Without ever going to the GMO, I don't think we should entertain that at all. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to all of our presenters, all of our participants. Thanks to our sponsors, Bloomin' Minerals and Liquid EFM by Youngevity. And again, I will send out an email to all participants with a link to this video once edited. Give me until, say, the end of tomorrow or maybe the day after. And we will get to you this video that's once it's edited, as well as the previous webinars, contacts for everyone who presented on this webinar today. information on Liquidity FM and Blooming Minerals and Longevity. And as a way of saying thank you for participating in today's webinar, we're also going to send you a link where you can do a free health evaluation assessment to see whether or not you as an individual are suffering from mineral deficiencies and how you can correct that and get to perfect health. A big thank you also to Alive for making this Zoom possible by giving me a MiFi device that allows me to have sufficient juice to stay on without getting knocked off. So that'll do it for this webinar. Next week, we're going to be looking at livestock, and we're going to have another great lineup of presenters who are going to be speaking at that. And again, I've been asked to continue these webinars. My plan was only to do it during the lockdown in the month of May, but the response has been really great. Today, I think we had like over 70 people at one point on the call, and we still have right now 63 of you stuck with us. And so looks like we're going to be leaning to continuing these webinars beyond the end of May, and I will let you know for sure at the webinar next week what the plan is going forward. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thanks so much for joining us today. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good afternoon.